From the heart of the land of the Guardians, where the dog pound roars, the Cavs soar, and heartbreak is just part of the game, this is 3 and Out, Cleveland Sports Talk. With Jason, Drew, and Michael, 3 diehard fans breaking down the highs, the lows, and everything in between. No fluff, no filters, just Cleveland sports the way it's meant to be. Now let's get into it. Here's your hosts, Michael, Jason, and Drew.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Again, this is 3 and Out. Drew here with Jason, and sometimes Mike, but not recently. Hopefully, I actually just talked, I didn't even tell you. I talked to him this week. He is hoping to be back soon, but got to finish up some things with life to calm down. But he actually had some cool ideas. So he's at least thinking about stuff. So Mike, don't be pulling our chain. Get back soon.
No chain yanking.
No chain yanking.
Yeah.
Well, for the first time in 2025. Yeah, because they wouldn't have wanted to. Yeah. We are here with a Browns victory.
Victory Monday.
Victory Monday.
Actually, for only the 4th time last year, because of our whopping 3-14 season last year, Victory Monday.
That's how bad we are. Yeah, it feels good. Well,
it does. Victory Monday certainly feels better than the alternative, which we've been.
Well, I'm a little jaded, so we're going to talk here real quick just about our initial feedback, and you'll understand where I'm coming from, why I say that. But I'm also jaded, so I know my perspective is a little skewed.
Not
so,
you.
No, not me. Never. Anyway, so just give us your thoughts on the game as a whole, your overall feelings and feedback.
Listen, it's not easy to win games in the NFL. That's the bottom line. So every victory is a good victory.
Tell the 72 Dolphins that.
And well, it wasn't easy though.
Oh, okay.
So all 17 of their wins they had that year they were hard fought. But every victory is important, and sometimes it's not how you get there, but just the fact that you got there. And we've had as a Browns fan, we've experienced more of the week 1 type scenarios as opposed to what we're talking about this week with a game-winning field goal, elation, and statistically speaking, there wasn't anybody that had the Browns winning this game. We were heavy underdogs at home with a really good Green Bay team. Some people were saying, possibly the best team in the NFC.
Some people are still saying that.
Yeah, and we showed up. We talked last week about the fact that this team, the way it's set up and structured, that all 3 phases have to show up. And I still don't believe that happened, but 2 of the 3 showed up. And, special teams was very complimentary. And they put between special teams showing up and the defense putting the offense, close enough to actually put points on the board. It certainly helps.
We have to get within the 20-yard line.
Yes. So that was, encouraging. I guess is the best way to say it. So there are certainly some areas of concern, but we take victories. It's at the end of the day, nobody's going to say, oh, well, you only won that game by 3 points and it was a last-second field goal. We're talking about stacking wins together, and let's be honest. We were looking at the schedule at the beginning of the year. None of us had Green Bay as a win.
No,
right?
We did talk about there's always a game that you lose that there's no reason you should have lost, and there's always a game you win that you had no reason winning, and this is that game, I think.
Yeah, for sure. So, but certainly a lot of cause for optimism. We've seen some really good things from quite a few pieces of our team, and then there's areas of concern, things that. I don't think it's a long-term recipe for any kind of success. So, anyway, it should be interesting for some conversation today, for sure.
Well, for me, the bittersweet was the sweet was obviously the win because we're Browns fans and we want to win. Sitting there watching yesterday, I actually got to a point with the boys. I was watching it with Drake. I was down there with the boys, and then I had it on the laptop, projecting onto the TV, and then I just took it off the TV, started playing games with the boys, left it on the laptop. So I'm like, it's that week again.
Yeah.
And then they reeled me back in, once the defense really started to get going that second half. And some redemption stories in here that we'll talk about later were nice. Just big play after big play by the defense. A boneheaded third down by Green Bay. I have no idea what the play call or what Jordan Love was thinking. But I feel good for the rookies to get their first win. For Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward and Joel Bitonio and those guys that are veterans that, have been through mostly downs with some ups to fight through the adversity and the issues of the first couple weeks to pull this one out. The bitter part for me is, this is a win that people are going to look and say, oh my gosh, look at Stefanski and what he can get out of these players. It had nothing to do with it. But that's me, I'm jaded. So I didn't, though I thought on a human level, the celebration that him and Barry had in the tunnel, I don't know if you saw that video, was awesome. Like, you could see there was a monkey off their back, a chip off their shoulder. Like, it just released a lot of pent up disappointment. And on a human level, I loved it. On a level of a guy that's hoping they replace Barry and Stefanski, I didn't. So I really was fighting different emotions yesterday. But ultimately, I'm a Browns fan first, and I want to see them win, and I'm glad they got the win.
Yeah. It's we get to celebrate, and the celebration is short-lived, just as Stefanski said yesterday in his post-game, because we're on to Detroit, and that's not, you want to talk about tough sledding and a team that comes to play and big physical team that's going to challenge. They're going to challenge us and
weapons out the wazoo.
Weapons out the wazoo offensively, and they have defensive players that are going to expose, or attempt to expose the areas that we all know we have problems with. We have offensive problems. We have a quarterback with cement shoes, and we have nobody.
Did you say we have a quarterback with cement shoes?
We do, and we have no tackles that either of us can remember any of their names that can protect the guy with cement shoes. So, a guy like Aiden Hutchinson. Now, I will say,
I gotta ask though, did you really say cement shoes or some issues?
Cement shoes and some issues.
I couldn't tell which one, but I went with cement shoes.
Yeah, well, enunciation is important, but in this particular case, either one of those
both applies. I mean, both are accurate.
So again, still a Flacco guy. Still believe in this position that we're in early in the season with this gauntlet of a schedule that he's the right guy to be in there. However, we don't see, and maybe this isn't the time for this, but if we don't see this offense start to show promise of being able to put points on the board, they're going to make a switch soon. Yeah. They're going to be forced to, and they should. Right. You cannot live. What did you say it was? 15.3 points.
Right.
You cannot live in that realm in this league
and expect to win many games. Yeah.
No, you're not going to win many games. I don't care how good your defense is.
Yeah.
Only scoring that many points, it puts your defense in way too bad a position. And I don't care how good our defense is, it's gonna bend and break.
Yeah.
Eventually. So.
Well, today obviously we're gonna cover Browns. We're gonna start off talking about just some of their numbers and stats and rankings overall this season, and then we're gonna head to talking more about the game, the good, the bad, things that have issues, people who stood out, and then talk about if there's time to make some changes. Or times is it time to be concerned about certain things? And then at the end, time permitting, obviously we want to talk about the Guardians because they're on quite a run. And I know we couldn't be more excited. Cavs start this week. So we can start talking basketball again. So we're just going to do just a small little preview on the Cavs and maybe what we think going into the season. And then
There are two other franchises in Cleveland that have not only playoff potential, but
likelihood.
likelihood.
Yeah. But somehow our hearts belong to the Browns
Yeah, that's been.
and get disappointed every year. So, well,
But it's Victory Monday.
It is Victory Monday, so let's not do the downer. We're going to be the upper. And you or me?
That must have been you.
Is that me? I hit a button and I think I dinged. All right, so we're going to start off talking about. Jason wanted to talk about just some of our rankings, both good and bad. With the Browns so far through 3 games. Now, some of this could change, but unlikely with the games tonight. Like right now, the Ravens are the number 1 rated offense at 40 points a game and like 420 yards of offense per game, but they've only played 2, not 3. But that won't impact us because we're at the other end of that spectrum.
Right.
So I guess what stands out to you in terms of, we'll talk offense first, but what kind of stands out to you offensively?
Well, we are, yards per game as a team. We're, I think, 15th from the bottom, so 17th overall. Is that about right? Somewhere in the middle there. 290 yards a game. It's been a struggle. I mean,
well, in terms of total offense, we're 11th. Passing, we're 15th. But 11th worst.
11th worst. Okay. Yeah. So, I think, we got to consider a couple things. The first 2 weeks, we were essentially without our RB1. We got 10 snaps out of them last week. No snaps in week 1. The running game is so key to making this offense work efficiently, which again, we had them in week 3, and I can't say we were very efficient, but
that's where I struggle to believe that a Stefanski-led offense can be efficient. But go ahead.
It can be. I mean, we've seen it. It's not like
we've seen it in small spurts. Have we actually seen it over the course of a season?
I mean, not over a whole season, no. But you look at, again, we can revert back to the last time we had a glimmer of success, and that was the end of 2023 when Flacco came in this offense with Stefanski at the helm, a tattered offensive line, which we have right now, no Chubb, which, again, I think we're better off than we were at the end of 2023 with Quinshon in there. This offense can put up numbers. What is missing? What are we lacking? Obviously, it's not a 1-for-1 trade. 2 years ago was
Cooper
for
Jeudy. But the interesting part there and we're going to talk more about the wide receiver room later, but Jeudy is essentially, now Cooper had better hands, generally speaking, but Cooper and Jeudy are both known as excellent route runners.
Yeah.
But Jeudy has more speed and athleticism than Cooper had. So why he can't get open, why the chemistry with Flacco is not there like it was Cooper. Yeah. There's something when it comes to our offense that there are times when you watch something and you know what you're seeing, but you don't know what you're seeing, or both good and bad. Mm-hmm. Things are clicking and you're like, I don't know why it's working. It's just working. What I watch, what I see is good. This is the opposite. There's just something missing. There's something rhythm-wise. There's something chemistry-wise.
I think
that
that's
just
the right
is
word.
Not there.
I think it's the rhythm because, minus a few drives this year so far, there hasn't been that, man, this offense looks like it's on fire. And I can remember.
I don't even know if there's been. We've had long sustained drives, but that's been like 3 yards at a time. 3 yards, a 3-yard dump pass, a 3-yard run, a 3-yard dump pass. Not like. You just see it. It's an 8-yard pass and a 4-yard run, and then we get a motion play and a wide receiver screen, and then we
patchwork.
It's just there's no continuity. It's just you feel like you're rolling along on square tires.
Well, we were this is going back to the end of 2023 complaints. Ended last year's complaints were that Stefanski could put together an initial game plan. I don't want to say we always, but it seemed like that first drive of the game, we were putting points on the board.
Yeah.
We were scoring. We were in the end zone.
Yeah.
It was a good
We
drive.
always said
It was-
Stefanski could scheme the start of a game.
Yes.
But
and then there
once
was no
we got-
adjustments.
yeah.
You know, there was no
Mhm.
go into halftime and we come out and be like Cincinnati in week 1 and put 7 yards on the stat sheet
Yeah.
and no points. You know, so there's something missing in the gel, in the continuity. The rhythm is just not there yet. Is that a Flacco problem? Is it a Stefanski problem? Is it, is there more pieces that are struggling than what we're able to see? There was a lot of times yesterday, and I know we'll talk about this when we talk about quarterback specifically, but there was a lot of times yesterday that you could say somebody was open and Flacco did the check down. He had time, and he, instead of looking deep or deeper, he hit the check down. And that's not what we were used to seeing 2 years ago.
That's not the Flacco we had 2 years ago.
Yes.
He stood in there, waited for plays to develop, and threw bullets
and
to
took shots.
Yeah.
Now he's
Now he
2 years older.
he took a couple yesterday as he was passing. There was one, and it shows he's still got the arm strength. Who was it to? I
think it was Judy across the middle when he got his arm hit.
Yes, when he got his arm hit. He still got the strength.
He had his arm was out here and he got hit before he released the ball even. And I think I commented to you guys, I'm like, how did he get that front pass off?
So it just, but then at the end of the half, he throws that one to Isaiah Bond, and he's 10, 15 yards short.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like it was an 80-yard pass.
Yeah.
So it's just weird. And I don't, we'll talk more about Flacco later, but when it comes to offense and numbers, we're at the bottom of everything. We're last in yards per attempt. Like he's only at, I think yesterday was at like 3 yards per attempt. We're only at 5 yards per attempt on the season. We're last in interceptions. We're last in QBR. And again, you talk about chunk plays, an offense that even if you dink and dunk, sometimes you then opens up that play over the top. We have the shortest, longest play offensively. And we have yards per reception, which again, the lowest yards per pass attempt, the lowest yards per reception. So there's just nothing that's working, outside of a 31-yard Judkins run last week and a 38-yard Judkins run yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
He's had been our chunk play guy, but nothing in the passing game and nothing consistently. And so hopefully, they can find a rhythm. And I know we're kind of starting off on a downside, but just to touch on the numbers before we get into the specifics of yesterday. We're at or near at the bottom. Points per game, we're third worst. We're behind Houston. I'm trying to think who's the second worst. Third worst at 15 points a game. We're at the bottom in rushing yards per game. It's, I think, fourth worst, like 57 a game. Now, again, one game without Judkins, one with a partial Judkins. Maybe that changes. And that, like you said, that would help overall. But I don't know. I just, when you look at pass attempts, and I have it later, I think, somewhere. Our wide receiver room. We talked about the wide receiver room. When you look at who's getting the passes, it's to running backs and tight ends. It's not to wide receivers.
Which again, that's been our complaint. That's been our complaint for multiple years, though, is that this was not a wide receiver friendly room. And when you look at the stats for this year to receivers, just target wise, there are attempts. Jerry Jeudy, 21
10 for 21.
He's leading the team in targets.
Mm-hmm.
18 to Cedric Tillman. He's second in the team in targets.
Mm-hmm.
Jamari Thrash with another 5. Isaiah Bond with 8. So, no, they're not dominating, but I think the way that this offense is structured right now, having a dual tight end threat of Harold Fannin, he's again, he is tied with Tillman for targets. There's another 18 targets. Njoku, 18 targets. There's 36 targets, between two tight ends that are very capable wide receivers. Game 1, Dylan Sampson popped off and had all those catches. He's been kind of quiet since. I know that's another topic of conversation, but Jerome Ford has 10 receptions this year.
Who's that?
Yeah, he had a couple decent ones yesterday. But
keep Jerome Ford and get rid of Nick Chubb.
I can see how that's an area of concern. My bigger area of concern is the 21 targets, only
Percentage.
10 receptions.
Right.
You know, is
Now, 3 of those are drops.
Yeah,
So
right.
here's the interesting part. It's the same 10 for 18. If you take, I got the 3 drops,
As
then he's
Tillman.
10 for 18 as Tillman.
Yeah. So and I will say, I think Tillman looks more like a pro wide receiver this year. We saw spurts of it last year. Limited spurts of it last year. Judy obviously had a heck of a year last year and a worthless season, but
Mm-hmm.
there's areas of concern overall with the passing game. I don't think it's a good recipe for this offense for 17 games to say we need Joe Flacco to go out there and throw 42 times. That's what we're asking right now. 126 attempts over 3 games. That's not a good recipe for us. Now, 61% passing, I think that could be a little bit better.
All right. So here's a question then. How many pass attempts do you have yesterday? 20.
Yesterday,
Yeah. Because I got a question for you.
36. 21 to 36.
So near the 42. We're a little less, but Judkins had 18 rushing attempts.
Yes.
In the past, when Stefanski was a little bit more balanced, Nick Chubb would get 18 carries and Kareem Hunt would get 12 to 15.
Yeah.
Who are you giving those other carries to?
Well, you gave the other carry, the sole other carry to Dylan Sampson.
Yeah.
So, we could look at again, we don't have a long list of games to look through this year. But you look at the past 2 games, and it was nobody was stepping up, obviously. And I think this was a message that Quinshawn's going to be our bell cow, but, there was no change of pace back. Dylan Sampson's supposed to be our change of pace back.
Yeah.
You got 1 carry, and he was a blank on the receiving end. There's
Right.
no targets.
Yeah.
So Dylan Sampson, who showed up and showed promise the first 2 weeks, I don't know what happened this week. He came in, he got 1 attempt, and then he stood on the sidelines. So Jerome Ford got some burn at as a third down back, getting some catches.
Because he's a better blocker.
But Dylan Sampson, MIA.
Yeah.
So
Well, let's.
that is interesting, something to pay attention to. I mean, I just don't think it's everybody wants that offense that goes out and we throw for 300 or 400 yards and we put 40 points on the board. And I do believe that we're capable of that. But we've thrown the ball an average of 42 times a game for the first 3 games, and we've scored 15 points a game, and we're 1-2.
Yeah. Well, but again, I go back to what was your other option? If you're not running Jerome Ford and you're not running Dylan Sampson, and last game they only had 10 to Judkins, you can't run the ball. Right. Well, okay, so now you had more Judkins. You ran him 18 times. Kevin's never really run a guy, even when we had Nick Chubb, 20-plus times a game. Right. He just doesn't do that. Right. So if you're giving Judkins 18, where are those other attempts coming from? Right. To reduce the amount that you're passing the ball.
Well, and we say, okay, and again, we look at the other games that we've played, and we've thrown more pass attempts, and we had more rushing attempts, and we won the time of possession. This game, we threw 36 times. We ran the ball 19 times as a team. We lost by the time of possession by 9 minutes.
Yeah.
Green Bay chewed us up. So, yeah.
That's one heck of a vibrate.
Yeah. That's my Amber Alert. Yeah. So, yeah. Anyway, yeah, I look to, maybe these are things we need to pay attention to going forward, though. Is Quinshawn, maybe he's our 20 carries a game guy, but we need to run the ball. This offense to be successful, we need 30 plus attempts, I think.
Yeah, and I just don't know where you get them.
Yeah, well,
I mean, right now, the other backs just aren't showing anything to trust to give them 10 to 12 carries a game, even between the two. So again, something to keep an eye on. But
Joe Flacco, averaging 4.7 yards a carry. See, there might be an option. Maybe we give him more carries.
I think he's actually got a better per carry average than Sampson and Ford combined.
He does.
Yeah. See.
There you go.
All right, moving on to better topics in terms of the rankings of our defense. As you guys can see, number one overall in total yards per game, 204 yards a game is all they're giving up. Tops in rushing yards at 57 a game. Tops in rushing yards per carry at 2.3, which I'll talk about that here in a second. We have not given up. I didn't realize this until I was looking into some of these stats. We have not given up a run of 20 plus yards. The longest rush we've given up this season is 11 yards. Now, when you consider the fact, think about this. We've Chase Brown, 1,000-yard back. What do you have? 21 carries for 43 yards, something like that.
Yep.
You had Derrick Henry, 11 carries for 23 yards,
23,
something like that.
Yep.
And then yesterday, Josh Jacobs, who led the league in rushing before, had
16 carries, 30 yards.
16 carries for 30 yards.
Long of 7.
Yeah.
Long run of 7.
So you're talking about playing 3 Pro Bowl caliber backs. Derrick Henry, who's going to be a Hall of Famer. And you're holding all 3 of them, and not one of them got a run longer than 11 yards. Your defensive line is dominating. And, even offensively, we're only giving up 147 yards a game. And that's Joe Burrow with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. That's Lamar Jackson with Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews and
Derrick Henry.
DeAndre Hopkins and, Derrick Henry. And then you go and you play Jordan Love, who was considered their offense coming in. They put up 30 points, was it 27 or 28 against Detroit? And then who was the other? They played another playoff team the second game and destroyed them.
Washington,
yeah.
Just one thing I noticed about and I don't think it's going to come into play against Detroit this week, but Jordan Love ran the option.
Yeah.
Josh Jacobs
the read option
in, and then he kept it around the corner.
Yeah, a couple times.
He had one for 10 yards. I think that was the longest rush we gave up was Jordan Love on the option. So there is.
Makes me wonder, did Lamar? Is our longest rush given up to a quarterback? Is there any chance Lamar had an 11-yard run?
Oh, maybe. Yeah. I can look back and see.
I'm just curious if those 3 stud running backs and the longest run we've given up was to a quarterback. Yeah. No, our defense has been dominant. And when you look at it, for me, there's not one player that I'm like.
Lamar Jackson, 11-yard run.
Yeah, I was gonna say I thought I remember him having one.
2 carries for 13 yards.
Yeah.
Which again, I think not that's too big of an area of concern right now, but our pursuit down the line, those guys are on fire.
Yeah.
So the run goes left, our backside end and tackle are crashing. There is pursuit to the ball. There's, it's kind of fun to see, but I think there's going to be guys that are going to be, if they have legs. Again, I don't think Goff's going to be doing too many. No, but they got 2 running backs, so we'll see. It'll be that'll be the first 2-headed monster we faced. So we'll see how we do against that. Gibbs and Montgomery. Yeah. But the other thing I was going to say is that when it comes to our defense through 3 games, and a Schwartz defense seems to be feast or famine, but Cam Mitchell maybe. I was trying to think of somebody that you were like has really struggled, because Ronnie Hickman's been pretty good and Miles Harden's been pretty good. Even guys that maybe aren't of the caliber of what you'd want on a great defense have been good. Schlesinger, Devin Bush, I think has been awesome. I love what he's brought so far. I just can't make sense of that. I love it, but it's a total shocker.
I was actually talking to somebody today. Yeah, I was talking to somebody today because the game was yesterday. And I said, I wonder if, because anytime you hear Schwartz talk about it, he always talks about simplifying the game. And I said, I wonder if that's why, number one, that when you get into the playoffs, his defenses can be picked apart because they don't disguise a lot. They're not doing a lot of fancy stuff. They're just saying it's mano a mano. We're coming at you.
Yeah.
But I wonder if that's why a guy like Devin Bush can be so effective. Hey, you're strong, you're athletic, go play.
Yeah.
Run at the
They
ball.
just kind of cut them loose.
Cover that guy, run at the ball, make that play, and just simplify it. And so he's able to just go out and be.
And the other thing I'm noticing, so last year, and maybe this goes back even a couple more years, you would see the communication between the safeties and the linebackers.
The miscommunication?
Yeah, well, they were trying to communicate. There was a lot of yelling and handshaking, trying to move guys at the last second, and people out of position and fingers being pointed and frustration. And it seems like this year, I don't know if it's because Schwessinger has the green dot and he's leading the communication and everything's funneling through him.
Yeah.
But it seems like there's not a whole lot of that happening so far that we've seen. It seems like the communication's been good. People are where they're supposed to be. I did notice we got caught with 12 men on the field on defense one time. That kind of burned us.
Yeah, that was Bush. He didn't run off fast enough.
Yeah, so I saw that
took away a sack.
Yeah, and just a few things like that. But there, to your point, did you have a stat that said we that was rushes over 20 years? There haven't been a whole lot of
big plays,
huge.
No, they were all against the Ravens.
Yeah.
There was those couple long passes. The one to the young receiver kind of coming across the end zone, and then the one to Hopkins that you can't play defense any better, and he just made a great catch. So, there's a lot to be excited about with our defense, and we're going through the gauntlet of the first part of our schedule, and so I would think because we played all premier quarterbacks. And if we can get through Detroit next week, similarly, you've got to have a conversation of, this potentially being one of the more dominant defenses in recent history, because of the way offenses are structured and the various weapons and schemes they throw at you. It's not the old day where it's 3 yards in a cloud of dust. It's a lot more complicated.
Oh, sorry. I don't know why that did that. I don't even know how to turn it off. There we go.
Computer.
I just went to get the Lions and Ravens 7-7.
Yeah.
Second quarter.
So just moving on, just again through some numbers. Our special teams, not that it's impactful. There's 3 phases of the game, and it's impactful. And we're not the worst on special teams, but I'll show you the one I was most surprised about is our net punt yards. We've got Bojorquez, and we have the 7th worst in net punt yards. And, I haven't really looked into it to see what our defensive return is allowing. And if that's why the net, I would think, because I know Bojorquez has had a couple long punts, but, that one to me he's the guy who's been able to help us flip the field.
Part of it could be that, our midfield strategy is punting from the 50, punting from their 45.
True, you're punting on a short field.
Yeah, trying to pin them deep, and it's a 30 or 40 yard punt as opposed to we know that him punting from our 20, he can flip the field for us. Yeah. So I don't know if that's
which he did yesterday.
Yeah,
he did yesterday. He had one yesterday like that. And hopefully Schmidt is through his, and his numbers will continue to go up, but
it'd just be nice if he gets a few kicks in where they're not, 55 yards, game winner, all eyes are on you and all the pressure's on you. He needs to get some a rhythm to his game as well, where the offense is not putting him in a position where we can only score field goals. So if you can't make your field goals, we lose because we suck.
Right.
So
pressure's off of him a little bit. How about this though? Surprise, surprise. We are tied for last in the number of kickoffs.
The total number of kickoffs?
Yeah.
That's what happens when you score.
When you don't score.
Yeah.
But then we're also, last thing, and then we'll move on. But we're second worst in turnover margin. And, obviously you're not going to win a lot of games when you're, we're -4 after 3 games. not a recipe for success.
No, it is a little surprising. As well as our defense is playing,
They only have one turnover. Mhm.
So I'm sure, I'm sure that's a topic of discussion.
How do you
But
create?
I
How do you
would-
create more?
I
And we've caused a couple fumbles, but we haven't recovered them.
yeah,
So there's some of that. Although
I'd rather have a sure-handed tackle all day long as opposed to these guys
trying to punch it
trying
out,
to punch it out and go for the ball and then arm tackles. And
or you
miss
do
the
like
tackles.
Devin Bush and do both.
That's obviously that's ideal, but I was noticing too. This Schweschinger, man, what a freaking
He's a beast.
He doesn't seem to miss, man.
Yeah. Well, that brings us to our next slide. We're going to talk about we're going to go back to the game yesterday and just talk about some of the standouts of the game. And there's probably one on here we missed. But first of all, Judkins. And I would say it's his first full game because he was only a part-timer last week. But 18 carries, 94 yards, a lone touchdown. And I don't know if you saw this, but I'm giving him a pancake of Micah Parsons.
Ooh,
Did you see that?
was it the stiff arm?
No.
No block.
He was blocking him.
Oh,
He was helping. It was him and Wyatt Teller,
okay.
and he just ran up and knocked Micah Parsons off balance, and he kind of swung around in a circle, and then Wyatt just pushed him to the ground. Yeah.
Nice.
So
his 2 fourth quarter runs. He had a 10 and a 18 or 14 yarder there. It was, I don't know. It just was it was comforting to see. It really, that's hitting the holes.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Busting through arm tackles.
Yeah.
Not being. He didn't even miss a step. He had that one big defensive lineman put a paw on him, and it was like he didn't even feel it. He just ran right through it.
There was at one point yesterday. Trying to remember the exact number, but maybe it was the final number. I can't remember, but it was like all but 4 of his yards were after contact. Which again, now obviously that's only last year, but we haven't seen a guy since Nick Chubb that had so many yards after contact.
Yeah.
And when you watch him run, he's not a big back like Nick Chubb.
Right.
Like he's almost a smaller looking back in terms of stature and just girth, but he runs with force. He runs with he runs like Kareem Hunt.
Yeah.
To me.
Angry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't care who's in front of him. He hits the hole quick. He's got shift to him.
Yep.
And he doesn't. My frustration with Ford was always I feel like he would stand back in the backfield and try to wait for the Red Sea to part.
Yes.
Instead of finding a little seam, hitting it, and just getting his body going forward and see what happens. And I feel like Judkins did that, blocking. There were a couple runs I remember watching the camera from behind, and there wasn't much more than this, and he's just putting his body right through it, getting maybe 3 yards, but that's not a 2-yard loss.
Yeah.
So that was really exciting. And I didn't realize this either. It was Saturday when I was listening to or reading a preview, and Judkins in college, and again, I hope I remember this correctly, never missed anything from injury. Not a snap, a play, a game, nothing. And so that kind of has me a little excited potentially for his durability as a pro, that because he was, even at Ohio State he shared, but before that he was a high usage back.
Yeah.
And so hopefully we've got that guy.
Certainly early on, don't want to crown him yet, but it certainly does feel that way.
Could we potentially have the offensive and defensive rookie of the year?
Oof. Man. Well, I would say we certainly could have people in the running for that.
Yeah.
I think there's an argument to be had, Schweschinger, obviously he's next on the list there.
Yeah.
What a
Good
what a
segue.
find he was, yeah.
So all of you out there, I know it's 0 for 2 here. Who had heard of Schlesinger before we even drafted him? Nobody. I mean, he was so unknown that his own coach at UCLA didn't know who he was and didn't start him the first game of the year last year. Like, this guy's come out of nowhere and is playing like a seasoned pro. I mean, he had 10 tackles, 7 solo, a sack and a tackle for loss, and he had a sack called back, from the 12 men on the field.
Yep.
So it's, he could be sitting here with 2 sacks and 11 tackles. But he just, even last week was a down week, but you still felt like every time you were watching plays, he was nearby. He was coming in as a tackle was happening to make sure the guy doesn't get away. The one thing I haven't seen is I'd love to know what his coverage grade is. It's not like guys are catching it on him.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I don't know how many times he's actually in coverage, versus maybe Devin Bush covering a guy. I don't know. But I'd love to see that. But there's really nothing to like about this guy. And
Nothing not to like.
Nothing not to like. Yes, thank you.
Plenty to like.
There's plenty to like, yeah.
Yes.
There's nothing not to like about him. And like even the play, which again, I don't understand, that third down play where they rolled Jordan Love out and you saw him kind of, I don't know if he was spying, but he was following him as he was rolling out. And then as soon as he got outside the pocket, Schlesinger just like a dart took off after him.
Dude, he had another gear there.
Yeah. And then Jordan Love pump fake, like, just throw it away. But I'm glad he didn't, but then just laid into him. It would just, he's, I don't know. Those are the guys that every fan loves because he's an underachieving, he's an under-talented overachiever.
Yes.
And that's all this kid,
He's just
Johnny
Hustle. He's Johnny Hustle. He's, and the one thing that I do love about Schwartz defense is it seems like the mentality isn't all about, solo stats. It's all about teams flying to the ball. 11 helmets to the ball, and good things happen. You're going to, that you're seeing that. You're seeing Aiden Hutchinson and the backside end.
He plays for Detroit.
Aiden Huntington. I'm sorry.
I mean, I would like to have him.
Yeah. Well, we're going to see him next week.
Can we have him?
Yeah. No. Mason Graham, these interior guys making tackles outside of the tackle box because they're flowing with the ball. It's not, I got double teamed and I'm stopping. The plays away from me and there's no.
They're relentless.
They are going after the ball.
Which I don't know if you had there, but that was our next talk was the defensive line. And
good segue.
Yeah. Did you plan that?
Yeah.
Okay. Well done.
Yeah, I'm getting better.
Well done.
Thanks.
See, I didn't even catch it that time.
See, slide it right in.
But go ahead. You keep going.
Anyway, no, the D line is just it's off the charts. And I know we're going to talk about Mason Graham later, but I saw a stat that his pass rush percentage,
win rate,
his pass rush win rate. 43%. And do you know what the NFL average is?
I'm going to take a stab at 9%.
9%.
Ha! Look at me. Look at that. I might have already known that stat.
Complimentary podcasting right there. So these guys are just off the charts. Obviously, Myles Garrett is he is him. He is Himothy, as you would say.
That conga line picture was hilarious.
So, but the D line as a whole is just playing so well as a unit. The pockets don't last. Very rarely did you hear the commentator say Jordan Love drops back plenty of time.
No, no time.
He was pressured. He was under pressure.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I saw, and I know he is Myles, but I saw some replays today of plays he made. They were just pressures. They weren't sacks or anything like that. But just the way he moved his body. So there was one play he came off the edge and Kraft went to block him. And the person who posted this likened it to a boxer.
Yeah.
A boxer's footwork. just scooted his hip out of the way and his foot crashed, went flying by him, never even lost a step.
Yeah.
And then just
Yeah.
chased that Love out of the pocket. And then another time he took he was going inside and he took one step kind of at the guy. And then this Paul Bunyan-esque step to the left all the way around the tackle. I think it was a tackle.
Yeah, never touched him.
Inside, never touched him.
Yeah.
Like,
it was
just
incredible. It was like
it
was like a, somebody doing a crossover in basketball and just absolutely shaking you.
Well, he's done a crossover in football before.
Yeah, it's but
he's not the only one, and that's kind of what we wanted to focus on. Is we've talked it. Clowney was Tomlinson was Olivia Vernon was you get all these kind of bigger name guys that have been underachievers over the years, and now you bring in a veteran guy, Malik Collins, which was good, but wasn't somebody that we were all like, oh, we got Malik Collins. It wasn't like Aaron. My gosh,
it wasn't like Huntington when we got or Tomlinson. I mean, Huntington. Geez, what's wrong with me? I got Aiden Huntington on the brain. But like Tomlinson, came in from Minnesota as a big name free agent signing where we paid all this money and the expectations were.
Yeah.
Malik Collins came in. We're thinking, okay.
He was kind of an under the radar pick.
Yeah.
He and Mason Graham, when you watch them, speaking of, Judkins running, they play angry.
Yeah.
Like they just come after you. But when you're talking about 26 tackles, 4 sacks, 4 tackles for loss, 6 QB hits, and then the blocked field goal with Shelby Harris.
Mm-hmm.
But Myles Garrett is Myles. But you had contributions from Malik Collins and Mason Graham, but then Isaiah McGuire and Alex Wright. And I mean, there was 2 plays I remember. Alex Wright getting blocked out of the play, making a move, and just getting himself back into the play. And the one, he lit up Jordan Love from Jordan Love's right side.
Yeah.
Kind of behind him.
Yep.
Just laid him out. And it's just the whole defensive line plays with just a motor and an aggression.
Yep.
Now, hopefully that can continue, but here's the thing. We're still missing a piece.
Michael Hall Jr. maybe?
Yeah.
Michael Hall Jr. hasn't
he hasn't even suited up.
Hasn't suited up since his knee injury week 18 of last year.
So you add him to this mix.
I am hopeful. I'm hopeful, he was our second round pick.
Even JTS was good yesterday. I don't want to say his name.
4 tackles. Yeah.
He was good. And it's the first time I remember actually seeing him play. I'm like, oh yeah, we have him. He was really good.
Well, I this is the first time I think he reached the stat line, but he had 4 tackles yesterday. And, it's just encouraging. Again, I think this defensive philosophy seems to be a lot less, searching for, the Browns had 3 Pro Bowlers. And no, the Browns defense as a team is the number 1 defense in the league.
Yeah.
And, you don't want to put any of us on the Pro Bowl. We don't even care.
Yeah.
We just want to be the number 1 team. And it's I just hope, I'm obviously the eternal optimist, but I hope that we can play complementary football and reward this defense for playing the way that they've played.
Yeah.
If they continue to play like this, we will be in every football.
Oh yeah,
we will be in football games and have opportunities, but the offense has to carry their own water.
Yeah,
they can't be handed the ball on the 6-yard line or 5-yard line after an interception every game.
No,
to put us back into it, or we can't count on the special teams to make a 55-yard field goal every time. There's got to be some complementary football. I hope they start getting their crap together here.
Yeah.
I know that was off topic.
No. That's so. They've just been extremely dominant, and it's evidence when we talk about the running. What they've done to really good running backs.
Yeah.
But you talked about Aiden Huntington as well. He was one we didn't mention. He had, I think, 4 tackles yesterday. And I mean, there's a guy who's undrafted. Now, the thing I like about him too, speaking of, working with guys, which we'll talk about in the Cavs, we were talking about before we got on, but he went to Myles Garrett's defensive
off-season.
lineman camp.
Yeah.
And that's a guy I think that's hungry, that's fighting every time he's on the field for the next play and the next play and the next paycheck, and he's got some talent, but more than that, he's got the heart and the fight to try to make sure he stays.
Yeah. Exactly.
Kind of like Rudy, because he knows the minute he gives up or lets up,
you're out.
You're out.
Yeah.
So
this league's unforgiving that way. That's for sure.
Well, thankfully, we forgave Schmidt.
We did.
See how I did that segue?
That was a good segue too.
Thank you. Thankfully, we forgave Schmidt because he came back, and it's, you can say there's really no such thing as pressure on an extra point, but they're a lot harder now. They are from further, and his extra point was to tie the game, and that's late in a game, so there's pressure. Last one he missed. Last time it was a pressure situation, he missed. He nailed it, and then to come up with 2 seconds on the clock, getting iced with the timeout, coming back out. Now, I will say this. I was watching. I even said it to Drake. The little flags at the top weren't moving, so there was no wind.
Yeah.
So, I'd like to think he would still make it, but there was no wind, which helped. But he hit right down the middle.
Yeah.
And he had 10 yards to spare.
Yeah.
So in terms of a redemption story, you got to love the kid. You got to love how the team cheered for him. How excited they were for him to make it. They were going back in the tunnel, and the guys just jumping on him and, hoo-hawing and all that.
I heard Miles on the sideline, before the kick happened, and he said, "Dre, this is your time. This is your moment." They had his back. There's a guy that, rightfully so. If anybody had a little bit of a grudge or wanted to point the finger at him, he was the scapegoat week one. He stepped up, and it was nice to see. It's certainly a good story. Yeah. And I just felt good to see all those Green Bay fans be like, we're going 17-0.
Yeah.
And how many TikTok videos I saw of them saying, "Are you? Not this year,
Not
this year, Green Bay.
Nope, you're gonna lose the Browns." But here's my only caution with Schmidt, and then we'll move on. Okay.
Spelling of his name?
Yeah, that's a whole pile of Schmidt. But Cade York made a 58-yarder to win a game.
He did.
Dustin Hopkins also made a 58-yarder to win a game early on in their 10 years with the Browns.
A short tenure.
Very short. I hope for Schmidt this isn't the high point. Now, we're going to move on quickly-ish, because I don't want to spend a lot of Debbie Downer time, but awful, but bad to the bone, because, and then I did some alliteration, because fun. But
alliterations are cool.
Yeah, they
Everybody can do those.
They are cool. But we had some horrible play from some key pieces and still walked away with the win. First of all, Flacco. He was awful. And I said it in the first game, and I keep seeing it. And again, it's one of those things you can't quantify, and I can't say, look, but his release time, not ball speed, his release time is slow. And I think that's changing who he throws to and how he throws it.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, because you wouldn't think that would be 2 years would cause your release speed to be slower. But man, does it look slow when he goes to throw the ball. Like, I might even say it last time. It looks like the Bionic Man.
Yeah. A little slow motion. Yeah. No, there's definitely areas of concern at the quarterback position. Is he a guy that can lead this offense and put more than 15 points on the board consistently?
He has weapons. Maybe not the best weapons, but we're not void of talent.
Right. I mean, again, if he's going to be the quarterback, if he's going to be QB1, the offensive line has to give him more time than he probably deserves for him to be efficient. And with that said, he's got to step up his game. It's just not cutting it right now.
But the thing that I struggle with, and I'll use this play to kind of encapsulate the whole thing. is the flea flicker.
Yeah.
Isaiah Bond there wasn't a defender. The closest defender was a safety behind him, and he was 10 yards behind him. And a veteran like Flacco, that he's got to be one of the primary options.
Yeah.
Because everybody else was short.
Yeah. Yeah. So
you drew in the linebacker, the safety was dropped, you get that whole middle area, and he dumps it off to Fannin.
Yeah.
Like, you were the quarterback, not me. But
well,
to me,
I never threw it long was because I couldn't throw that far.
Well, you couldn't see over the line.
Or that. So we had multiple problems with me. But Joe's 6'6".
Yeah.
And he can throw the ball that far.
And he knows how to read a defense. So why can he not find that guy? I don't know.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if, and again, you wouldn't expect it from him.
Right.
And I'm sure maybe he's beating himself up.
Oh, I'm sure he is
as well. But, is he a little jittery about getting smacked around? These tackles are we have no left tackle, we have no right tackle. Micah Parsons, people are putting pressure on him.
Mm-hmm.
I think he took a big hit from Queen, the week before. And he's not a mobile guy.
Yeah.
Even on his best, when he was in his prime, he wasn't a mobile guy. So, he needs to have the confidence to be able to step in there, and hopefully they can flip it around. But if that does not change here soon, we all talked about how long is the leash for Flacco, and I see that
it's pretty tight.
Yeah, I think it's getting shorter.
I think it's pretty tight.
I think it's getting.
And I don't know if it's more disappointing, but it's no less disappointing is the lack of production / lack of chemistry with Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah.
Yesterday he had 1 catch, 5 targets, 17 yards. On the season, he's only got 10 catches and for 134 yards. For comparison, Puka Nacua had 11 catches yesterday alone.
Mm-hmm.
Jeudy has 10 in 3 games.
Well, everybody knows Puka's getting targeted.
Right.
So that shouldn't be an issue.
Well,
either.
and for me, bullet point number 4 plays into that.
Go back. What is bullet point number 4?
Yeah. So, but he's got 3 drops and 10 catches. It's not good enough. That means now you say the other 8 balls were not catchable, right? Just for sake of argument.
Sure.
That means of the catchable balls, you've dropped 3 of 13 attempts. That's horrible.
Yeah, that's not good.
For a number 1 receiver.
Right.
We said no touchdowns. And right now he's on pace. I think I did the math for 760 yards on the season, which would be his worst season of his career.
No, something needs to be ramped up. Something needs to be ramped up with this offense, or they're going to make a change. They're going to make a change, and my fear with them making the change is that we're throwing the season away, and I hate to do that early, but maybe it could be the shot in the arm that they need. Somebody comes in there with energy, and whether that's. Well, I think Dylan Gabriel will probably get the first.
He'll get the first nod,
and, but his leash won't be long because they're going to want to see what Shedeur has.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
that could be coming pretty quick. I don't think it's in the near future. We happen to win against Detroit. We go to London and we beat Minnesota. Without their starting quarterback.
We do what?
And we're 3-2. This is a whole.
We do what with Detroit?
Nobody gave us any chance to beat Green Bay. We show up, and 3 phases of football show up.
Yeah, right now they're beating Baltimore 14-7, and that's in the first half. And we scored 17 for the whole game.
Yeah,
including a pointless touchdown drive late. But okay.
But you digress.
I digress. All right, the next one we talked about was Dylan Sampson. Disappearing Dylan. I don't even know if he's on the team now. First game he had 12 rushes. Second game he had 4. This game he had 1 First game he had 8 catches. Second game he had 3. This game he had none. Like he's just, and he's averaging 2.2 yards a carry.
Yeah.
Other backfield he's good, but I'm not sure they can play him because, especially against Baltimore, his pass blocking was so bad. Like he got obliterated a couple times.
Well, maybe
by
this
guys.
is what maybe this is what the consequences that is. That they gave him opportunities and he did some things well, and other things you need to really work on. And you're not going to get burned. You're not going to put our quarterback in a bad position because you can't block properly. And
Yeah, we got Judkins. We don't need you now, so you either learn it or
yeah,
you can watch from the sideline.
So again, there have been some good things. We saw why they drafted him. I think in week 1.
There's potential,
and but there were also some things that obviously in week 2 that he did that weren't great, and then he was gone this week.
Yeah.
So, will he show back up in Detroit? We shall see.
Yeah. I hope. I like the kid. I like what he brings.
Yeah.
Next one is just, again, it's me. I'm jaded, but I just don't think Kevin is this offensive genius that he's made out to be. This is his offense. And we go back to Puka. Everybody knows the ball's going to Puka, right? He's no longer a surprise. He's not a rookie that nobody's heard of. And you find a way to get him 11 catches. Now, is he also that talented? Sure. But last week, he had a 40-yard touchdown run because they ran a nice play on an end around, and got him a touchdown out of the backfield.
Mm-hmm.
You find ways to get the ball in the hands of your playmakers. And it seems like Stefanski is running an offense that is irregardless of the talent in the offense. I've got player A, B, C, D, and E. You drop back, you read play A, B, C, D, and E. Pass it to the open guy, which, okay, I understand that. But then you've got your talent who can go some games and get this much and some games get this much. And when you have a roster that has so little talent, you've got to find ways to get that talent into the game.
Yeah.
And there's no reason. Like I would be fine if Judy had 1 catch on 8 targets or 10 targets. And you know what? For whatever reason, they did a good job defending him. He and Joe just couldn't connect in the game, but 5 targets and, I can think of at least a few of them. He wasn't even open. It was like Flacco was saying, you know what? I'm going to get him the ball.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't even, he did overthrow him the one time when he was open. So there was one time he overthrew him when he was open. But still, and the 1 catch he had was the one where his arm got hit.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was his 1 catch.
Yeah.
There could have very easily been a broken play. So I don't know. You've got to go back to Dylan Sampson. You've got a guy who's dynamic out of the backfield. And you run him 1 time up the middle. That's his game.
There's certainly an argument to be made for that. I believe, I've seen the offense work. So I'm not sure what the issues are exactly this year on why we're struggling so bad.
Let me ask you this: when did the offense work?
Well, it's indisputable that this offense worked with this quarterback in 2023.
So was it the quarterback or the offense?
And it worked with Baker. This offense did work with Baker. Baker was on pace to be, without a doubt, Cleveland's leading passer in our history.
True, but if you go back to those seasons, and I apologize if you guys can hear the rain and the thunder outside, but if you go back to those seasons, we had a lot of discussions long before we ever did this of we've got Jarvis Landry, we've got Odell Beckham, we've got Nick Chubb, we've got all these stud people, and they are, other than Nick Chubb, but our receivers look average.
Mm-hmm.
Why can Odell Beckham never get open? Why is Jarvis Landry every catch contested? We talked about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right.
And so Was that just we had a good offense because Nick Chubb was a good running back? Because again, Nick Chubb every year led the NFL in broken tackles and yards after contact. Is that great offense? Where your running backs getting hit in the backfield all the time?
Well, okay. Is it? You think that Saquon last year was just running 20 yards untouched?
He jumped over guys.
It's
backwards.
This is the NFL. It's there's going to be you've got to be able to fight through some struggles, and I believe that this offense can work with Kevin, with Flacco even. Now, again, the leash is getting shorter, but had we not seen 5 games in a row of putting up 500, 600 yards of offense, 40 points, 35, 40 points a game, and winning 5 games in a row and making the playoffs, making that huge playoff.
So where is that offense now?
Well, that's the thing. I don't exactly. I mean, there obviously is there's obviously personnel differences. Is that something? Is there something that?
Well, but there are personnel differences.
And is Flacco just not the same guy? Is it Flacco? No.
But is he half the guy? Because that's about what our offense is doing now. Is half of what it did the last time he was here.
I'd like to think it was. I like to think he's more than half the guy. But again, the first 2 weeks of the season we had no running game.
Well, let me
running game.
Hold on. Let me back up. And we're getting off topic, but good conversation. 2 years ago, who was your best running back?
Jerome Ford.
Still on the roster. He's our 3rd running back, which means in theory, Samson is better, and Samson and Judkins is way better. So your backfield's better. Okay. Who was your tight end 2 years ago?
Still Njoku.
Njoku. Who was your second tight end? Not Harold Fannin. Okay. So now you're better at tight end. You're better at running back and better at tight end. Who was your top receiver? Cooper. Now it's Judy. Last year, Judy's numbers were comparable to Cooper's that year. Okay.
That year we were a playoff team. Last year we were 3.
I understand. So
we were throwing out of necessity, and again, there's an argument.
Well, but we weren't a playoff team 2 years ago until Flacco came. So we were out of the playoffs until he came. So again, I give the edge to Cooper, but not by much. Okay. Judy's a step down, I think, of what Cooper was that year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But not by much. Who was your WR2 that year?
Huh.
He's still on the roster. No, it's Tillman. Tillman
was our wide receiver too.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he was our WR2. Elijah Moore was our slot, which again, he was better than what we have right now at slot because we don't even throw to our slot receiver. Technically it's Isaiah Bond, but everything he gets is out of the backfield going into the flat for a screen.
Yeah.
So, but all that to say, you're better in the backfield. You're better at tight end. Your WR2 is the same. Your WR1 is probably slightly lower, but not much, if any. Okay. So really the only place where you're not as good is your wide receiver 3. That's it. So why is the offense as anemic as it is? Like, that's what doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And that's where I point to Joe Flacco just had magic, not Kevin Stefanski's offense was that effective. So
we'll see who's
I'd love for him to prove me wrong, but I'm going on 6 years of experience.
Yeah.
Now, the last thing just that really struggled, because we got to move on, is our offensive line. Now DeJuan Jones is out for the year. Who knows if and when Jack Conklin will come back, because I've heard his elbow injury is pretty severe.
Mm.
Even though they list him as day-to-day, it's not a day-to-day injury. And then,
typical Conklin.
Yeah, typical Conklin. So now you got makeshift tackles. Batonio and Teller are okay, but they're not at what they once were either, especially in the run game because they don't get out and run as well. And Posich, one game seems fine, the next game seems not.
And they're saying that Batonio, his back was so bad.
Yeah.
Past week, he should not have probably played against Green Bay, but
he's done that for 3 years. They say it every year. They say this injury is so bad he probably shouldn't play, and he shows up and plays.
Yeah. He needs to say something to Conklin about how to do that.
Yeah.
show up and play. Collect,
Yeah.
he's just over there collecting
the
paychecks.
paycheck. Yeah.
So,
Hopefully we can find some life, but we don't have Bill Callahan to come in and take a makeshift group and make them great. And I think it's going to continue to be a struggle. So, all right, real quick, we're not going to go through each individual, but on our rookie report, so we were talking, and there's 6 impactful and a 7th who could have been a bigger impact had that flea flicker gone the way it should have. But you're talking about, I know they rotate guys in and out, but of 25 positions, and that's including your kicker, your punter, and your long snapper, right? 7 rookies made an impact in the game. You got Schlesinger, we talked about him. Judkins, we talked about him. Graham, we talked about him. Fannin, Huntington, Schmidt, and Isaiah Bond. We've talked about them all today, so we don't need to revisit that. But I got to thinking, and the guys who didn't play, really, Sampson's not on here. You've got, and then Shador and Dylan Gabriel. Is this the best Browns draft class ever?
It's certainly shaping up that way.
I mean, at least off the bat.
Yeah.
Now, you could say, well, that whatever draft Jim Brown was in was the best because he was in it.
Yeah.
I get that you have Hall of Fame people that come out of a draft. I get it. We don't have Bernie Kosar in this draft, and arguably, again, one of the best Browns. But I'm saying as a complete draft, is this starting out to look like potentially the best Browns draft class ever?
I can't think of one that would be any better. I mean, the Baker Mayfield, Nick Chubb draft and Denzel Ward draft would be.
Was it Miles and Denzel? No,
it was Baker, then Denzel, and then they got Chubb in the second round.
Oh, that's right, Chubb second round.
So,
yeah.
I mean, that's going to be.
So that
hard.
was probably that would be arguably a comparable draft,
right?
Because you got 3.
But I could look at 3 potential down the road Pro Bowlers here. I mean, there's certainly playmakers.
I could see potentially 4.
Yeah.
Schlesinger, Judkins, Graham, and Fannin.
Yeah.
All different positions, all dynamic in their own right.
Right. And just a point of note here too. The bottom 3 on that list are all undrafted free agents, rookies.
Yeah.
So, that's a kudos to the talent scouts and the Browns for finding guys that could come in, earn their keep, and make an impact on this roster. And they're making an early impact. And Aiden Huntington has earned his spot, his hustle from special teams.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's getting burned on the defensive line
and being an impact.
And it's just that's so cool to see.
Well, and that's where I think when I was thinking about this is, like Nick Chubb didn't play right away. Baker didn't play right away. Like these guys are starting from game 1.
Yeah.
Now Judkins obviously out game 1, but started from game 1 playing and being a part of the rotation. And we're not winning, but we lost by 1 point to Cincinnati. Baltimore got away from us, but that was more of an overall offensive ineffectiveness.
Mm-hmm.
And so just, after 3 games looking at it and saying, after 3 games, small sample size, but still, has this been the most impactful? And I think it's exciting. Yeah. Now, the downside is you don't have, a quarterback, you don't have a left tackle, you don't have a wide receiver, you don't have a defensive end, like you don't have a cornerback. Like you don't have the positions that you generally are like
the splash ones,
right?
Yeah.
The big ones that everybody's going for, but still important positions that are really making an impact so far.
Yep.
There we go. We've talked about a lot of this, and for the sake of time, Flacco, time to make a change.
Personally, me, no, not at this time. But we're real close. Unless we see something here against Detroit, you could see him make a change in London. Maybe that game in London is the Dylan Gabriel inaugural. It's neutral, a
I think it will
field.
Be.
So
I think they give Joe Flacco Detroit.
Yeah.
So you're not throwing a rookie out against Detroit. And then I think Dylan will be in London, neutral field, good team, not great team. I think that's when they make the change. And I think then it's X number of games for Dylan Gabriel and then give Shador some to end the season, because the one thing I don't think you can do, if they beat Detroit and they go 2-2, I could see them holding on a little while longer
Sure. Yeah. I
to
agree
see
with
if
that.
they can make a playoff push. So
Yeah.
I will, throw that caveat in. But you have 2 first-round picks next year, ours and Jacksonville's. Now, who knows if any quarterbacks will be worth taking next year? Nobody's really standing out in college football right now. But you got to know. You've got to know what you have, I think, in Dylan and Shador before you decide if you need a quarterback in next
Right.
year's draft. And how are you going to do that if you don't give them an opportunity in real game situations? But it's, again, I think the only way they don't do that is if they're making a playoff push. So I think in terms of the O-line and the receiving room, I think there's time to panic. But I largely, with the O-line, it's injury. Can you find guys, out on the waiver wire, free agents, guys that you can come in, and they can just be a veteran presence that know the job, maybe aren't great, but better than KT and Cornelius. I don't know. I don't know what's out there. Is there a way to make a trade, for somebody to bring in a left tackle? Because DeJuan's not it. I'm sorry. I don't think he can't stay healthy. He was awful this year, especially in run blocking. He's not your left tackle. You don't have a left tackle of the future. Now, do you use one of your first round picks next year for that? Maybe. But you also got to know if you got to use on a quarterback. You also need a receiver.
Yeah. No,
So
there's going to be a lot of needs for those,
Yeah.
a lot of options for those
yeah,
first round picks. But yeah, O-line is definitely a concern. The receiving room we've talked about at nauseum here, but I don't know that it's necessarily time to panic there yet, because I think they haven't gotten the opportunity to show whether they're that or not. Tillman, again, what we'd say 18 targets, 10
Mhm.
catches, 21 targets on 10 catches for Judy, and then there's a lot of drop.
a huge drop. And
Huge drop.
that's for me where
So
now I don't know if they intend on Isaiah being a slot guy,
yeah, I don't think so.
but he's got to have more than, would you say, 8 targets in 3 games?
Yeah.
That's got to go up. To me,
But Fannon's kind of taken some of those, in my opinion, as well.
true.
So
Also
I think,
true.
I think he's.
If you have, sorry, I'm just thinking numbers. If you have 35 passes a game, I'm just thinking numbers.
Mhm.
Judy 8, Njoku 6, 5 each for Tillman and Fannin. How many is that? 24. I'm just throwing numbers out there off the top of my
Another
head.
5 to your running backs.
Another 5 for running backs. That's 29. So that's 6 left.
Right.
For you got
For a slot.
for Isaiah Bond and Thrash combined, which is about where we are
Right.
in a sense. So I guess numbers add up. Just got to find a way to get them catches and yardage. I don't know. So I guess the numbers aren't as skewed as I thought, once you actually do the math. But we're taking 42 passes a game, not 35.
Right.
So there's 7 additional attempts that, are going into no man's land.
Yeah.
As far as Stefanski-led offense, I've beat that drum. I won't beat any more tonight. I don't know if you have anything else to add.
No. I mean, time will tell. I think this season is going to be. I don't want to say it's a make or break for him. It very well could be, though. When they talk about coaches on the hot seat, this team underperforms again and comes up with a 3 or 4 win season again, back to back. The patience is going to wear thin with ownership, though they just extended the contract to these guys.
Yeah.
So there has to be some forward progress. They've, Stefanski and AB's job this year is to say, we can do this. We need more time.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Jury's out. It's early.
Yeah.
If we were 0-3,
Yeah.
I think this time to panic slide would probably be a lot more impactful, because
But we got a big win, so
We
it
did.
does buy time for a lot of these changes.
we'll see. These next couple weeks are going to be, you go in and you play a team like Detroit in Detroit.
Yeah.
That's going to be a big test. Again, our defense, no doubt, is the top defense in the league. So they're going to have a problem with that.
Yeah.
Can our offense step up? Can our special teams do what they need to do and be an asset, not a liability?
Can our offense take some of the pressure off our defense?
Yes.
I just
and that would be a good segue.
There we go.
A great segue.
Thanks.
Good job.
It's when you have an anemic offense, the concern is the defense is on the field too much, that defenses mentally will start to let up because their efforts aren't being matched by the other guys on the other side of the ball. And I hope that's not the case. I hope we have enough guys to rotate in and out, especially on the defensive line, to kind of keep getting after quarterbacks and shutting down running backs and those types of things. But, they're all human, and the mental part is tough.
Oh, yeah.
Well, let's switch gears. We're going to talk a little bit of Guardians and Cavs and then close up. Obviously, the Guardians have been on a tear. Their last 17 games are 15-2. Team ERA, we were looking it up. They're at 1 point. Actually, they're actually a little under 1.71. Over a 17-game stretch. And today's baseball is absolutely fantastic. You're talking about all the starting pitchers have ERAs at like 3.5 and above. And now the whole team has been at less than 1 3/4 or 1. They're given less than 2 runs a game over a 17-game stretch. They have 6 games left. They have 3 at home against the Tigers and then 3 at home versus the Texans, versus Texas. But they, the fact that they're all home, the fact that they're riding high. I mean, they cut an 11-game lead in 17 games from Detroit down to 1. They're in the wild card. If the season ends today, they're in the wild card.
Yeah.
Is this sustainable for the last 6 games and into the playoffs?
Personally, I don't think it is.
Yeah.
But man, it sure is exciting from where we were.
Yeah.
Not too long ago,
Every single person ever or everywhere wrote them off.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah.
They might have even written themselves off.
It's just, talk about a team that does more with less.
Yeah.
You said that.
That's what I tell you. I don't like Kevin Stefanski.
Yeah.
He takes great talent and makes them average. The Guardians take average talent and make them great.
So these guys are, outplaying their contracts, and again,
they're outplaying their contracts except for Jose, and he's outplaying his contract because his contract is so underpaid. But anyway,
he's the only.
Yeah.
There's a guy that's dragging the rest of the team along, but
yeah.
Pitching as well has just been. I think you put the stat up there. What was our ERA over the last 17 games? Is 1.71 or something like that. It's just insane pitching. And it's they lost on Sunday. They're off today, and then they're back in Detroit for a 3-game stint. We win that series, we're putting ourselves in a position to close the season out, and maybe win the division, but certainly be in the conversation for one of the wild cards.
Yeah.
So they're right where they need to be, and this team just needs to finish. So it's going to be some fun baseball to watch. This is the time of year to start watching baseball.
The one thing that they've been doing, and this was the hallmark of the team last year, is great pitching, but then timely hitting. Not big bats,
right? But
timely hitting. And it feels like every game it's somebody different. A couple games ago, Bo Naylor had a couple home runs, and Brian Rocchio's come up with some big hits, and Angel Martinez had a home run. Like guys that they might only hit one ball in 4 games, but it's a timely hit that helps lead to a win. And then they go cold, and then one other guy next game comes up with a hit.
Yeah.
And so it's Is it sustainable? Again, I don't think it's sustainable into the play. Do I think they can continue the last 6 games? Yes.
Well,
Because
they're one of the hottest teams in baseball right now, win-loss wise.
15-2 in baseball is no slouch. But Tigers have been kind of in a free fall. Now, the problem with the Tigers is now they're fighting for their life, and does that refocus them? Maybe. But I just don't think that their type of ball can be a playoff recipe for success.
Yeah, well,
And they prove it, pretty much year in and year out. They go to the playoffs. They compete. They're fun to watch, but then they falter because they go up against a team with big bats and they don't have the bats to match it.
like the Yankees.
Yeah, because those games come down to 1 or 2, pitches that miss the mark by a little bit, and that guy sends it over the fence, and our guy sends it to the
And
second baseman.
we don't have Aaron Judge or
No.
Giancarlo Stanton or any of these guys that can just
Yeah.
we have one guy.
Yeah. Can we bring Albert Bell out of retirement?
I mean, him and Jim Thome
Nah,
back on the lineup.
give me Albert Bell. I like Albert Bell. That's a story for a different day.
Yeah.
So
Fun,
it's
fun
at least
baseball. This next week's going to be fun.
yeah, and it gives us something to watch as we lament some of the Browns. Now this week we'll enjoy it because the Browns won, but if they make the playoffs, then they've exceeded expectation, and what happens in the playoffs will be just fun to follow along and be part of the ride.
Well, it'd be fun next week when we get together that we're talking about Browns being 2-2, Guardians in the playoffs. We should know both those things.
Okay. Think positive thoughts. All right, last topic. This week, the Cavs.
What sport is this?
I know. Been a while since we've really delved into the Cavs, and so we're just going to touch on them. I heard a report from somebody when Donovan showed up last week, or over the weekend, I can't remember, but they said it's best Donovan they've ever seen. Now, again, does that mean they played pickup?
Like walking from the limo?
Well, that's what I don't know. I don't know the context. I don't know if it was they played pickup and he was just dominant. I don't know if that meant he came in shredded and looks like he dropped 10 pounds. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know what that means, but I like the fact that he came in and the reaction was that's best Donovan.
Okay.
Whatever that means, that's a good sign. But I think this season hinges more on the progress of Evan Mobley.
Yeah.
And for me, I've never been a huge I've been a big fan of Evan Mobley. I haven't been a huge fan of Evan Mobley's potential, if that makes sense. I think he's a good player. I don't think he's the MVP caliber player that people envision him being. I hope I'm wrong. But I think in order for us to take that next step, I think he has to become that.
Well, we'll see. Season starts because we're going to be without 2 starters to start the season.
Yeah.
So
We're down
Max
Strus
Strus
and Darius Garland.
Darius Garland. So, Mobley and Donovan are going to have to take they're going to have to take control, and we're going to need people that can step up. And what are your expectations for those first 30 games, first 25 to 30 games that we're without those? So is it possible for us to be 20-5, or is it possible 15-10, or what do you?
I haven't looked at the schedule to know who we play. I got tea from my tea that came out of my cup. I think it's going to be kind of a trial and error period for them. I don't think it's going to impact their wins and losses much because of the way Kenny Atkinson plays. Because
who's the other guy that we were missing from last year? The 6th guy, another shooting guard that was just on fire that we didn't re-sign him.
Oh, you're talking about Ty Jerome.
Ty Jerome.
Yeah.
So we don't have Ty Jerome either.
True, but it's the way he plays, I think will be fine. But what I'm interested more in is kind of what I put down there, who emerges. And I'm interested in the lineup. I think the starting lineup without Garland and Strus will be Sam Merrill and DeAndre Hunter, which I've wanted DeAndre Hunter in the starting lineup anyway. Sam Merrill, I'd like to see a guy from him to build on the defensive energy he brought in the playoffs last year. I thought he was excellent defensively for his physical skill set. But he needs to be a guy that's not 8 for 9 one game, 1 for 9 the next.
Yeah.
6 for 10, 2 for 10. Like, he needs to be more consistently a 40% shooter. That, you get him 5 threes, he's making 2 every game.
When he gets more minutes, when he gets 35 or more minutes a game, there hopefully some consistency emerges. Yeah. He was coming in getting 12 to 15 minutes a game.
Yeah. And then because of injuries was starting to get like 30.
Oh, okay. At the end. Yeah.
Yeah, well, injuries, and they stopped playing Ty Jerome because he was a defensive liability.
Yeah.
But even more than that, what's going to interest me, so Lonzo Ball, they're going to try to save him for the playoffs, I believe, because of how injury prone. He'll play, but I think during the year he's going to get 10 to 15 minutes a game. And then, if he stays healthy, they ramp him up for the playoffs. Larry Nance, I think, gives you flexibility in the middle. Because he's a stretch 4. He can also be a stretch 5. He allows you to do some different stuff with Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. I don't think we have another big guy that we need. But I'm interested. The 2 guys that I'm interested in seeing are Jalen Tyson and Tyrese Proctor. Because they're both bigger bodies who can handle the ball, who kind of have a tenacity and a skill set of almost Alonzo Ball type. Different skill set, but similar body size. And actually, Tyrese is kind of a lot like Alonzo Ball with a little bit better shot.
Can the NBA do some different things roster-wise with those 2 guys basically on IR? Are we able to sign two other bodies, and can we?
Yeah, what they'll do is you'll get your 2-way contracts, and you'll bring those guys up, because you have 15 on the roster, and then you have 2-way contracts, and so we'll just bring those guys up
from the G League.
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah, that's Luke Travers and somebody else, I believe. But
no vet minimum, that we can.
Not unless they're lost for the year. I don't believe. I could be wrong, but if they're out for the year, then you put them on. But they don't have like an IR like the NFL does.
Okay.
The other one I think that could be is he started to really play at the end of last year, and then he actually worked out with Donovan this summer. Is Naquan Tomlin. Again, kind of like another one of those undrafted guys, that just work hard and are hungry. And, he's got some size and a skill set. But I still think this team, and I think it's the one thing that could hold back their potential, they're missing an enforcer. Like, you get to the playoffs.
Like a Draymond Green type guy.
You've got to have a Draymond. You've got to have a Jonas Valanciunas, a Steven, oh my gosh.
Adams,
thank you. I kept want to say Allen. Steven Adams. You've got to have, who's the big white dude that the Thunder had? You got to have Mitchell Robinson from New York. You've got to have a guy that's just going to go out and try to get offensive rebounds, doesn't have much of a skill set, going to bang guys around.
Yeah.
Because number one, they're durable during the season.
Yeah.
They're not as useful in the postseason, but they help you be more durable, because those guys don't generally get hurt a lot. They just go out and beat people up and whatever. But it also helps build a mentality of toughness, to me, for a team that the Cavs don't have yet. And I think that's what hurt them in the playoffs last year. They had Miles Turner, and Miles Turner kind of ran roughshod over us.
When Braun was here and we had Varejao,
that was Varejao.
Yeah, he was
You
maybe
frustrate the
not-
other team. And,
Yeah, just kind of crazy energy that
Yeah.
ball hustling,
Yeah.
diving all over the floor, hair flopping all over the place.
Love his hair. But no,
Yeah,
that's
you're
exactly
right. We are missing that,
Yeah.
and this team does look a little, minus Mitchell, it's a little vanilla,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
it's the potential's there. I mean, we saw some really good things last year. Obviously the wins and losses in the regular season were encouraging. But we're going to be down 3 key pieces from where we ended last season,
Right.
if you include Ty Jerome to start this season. And it'll be interesting to see, the DeAndre Hunter that we got wasn't the DeAndre Hunter that we wanted, I think.
Well, the DeAndre Hunter, the regular season DeAndre Hunter he disappeared in the playoffs, and that was disappointing. Yeah.
And so it'll be interesting to see if he kind of comes into his own. Maybe it was a continuity thing. There is something in basketball to that. The flow of the game and being on the same page with everybody, and just knowing where that guy's going to be at every given moment. There's just maybe it was missing a little bit last year. So
Sorry. I'll talk about this in a second. Just got a text from my son. In a second. That's
nice.
He said my freaking head's about to blow off. So
Well, that leads us to our next slide.
Yeah, that'll lead us. I'll end it with this though. To me, best case scenario right now is Eastern Conference Finals.
Okay.
Barring a change in mentality that they didn't have last year, and I don't know who that's going to come from. Maybe a Jalen Tyson if he gets more minutes because he's kind of a bulldog.
Yeah.
I like the way he plays.
Who do you see in that Eastern Conference Finals? Do you see is it a Boston or
no? Because Jason Tatum's out all year.
Yeah.
So
he was out last year.
My
Pacers.
Yeah, no. Who am I thinking? Oh, well, yeah, because Halliburton's out all year. The Bucks don't have Dame Lillard anymore. Am I really misremembering? Is Jason Tatum?
He's out
back.
last year.
He was out last year, so he'll be back.
Yeah, he should be.
But
back.
So Boston should be back in it. Although they had to really they had to get rid of Porzingis because now he's in Atlanta. So that's going to change them a lot. And they also, I can't think of the name off the top of my head, because they were cutting salary. So they're not going to be the same team. Sorry, I'm getting my head wrapped around NBA now.
All good.
New York will be good. So to me, it's the Knicks, and I think the Hawks will be very good. I think those two teams are going to be tough to beat. And like the Knicks, again, that's a physical team that's going to be tough to go up against. So that's why I say Eastern Conference Finals. If they get a mentality change, or if Mobley takes a step from All-Star to All-NBA level, then I think that's different. We know what Donovan Mitchell's going to bring you, and we know how far a Donovan Mitchell-led team can take you.
So maybe something to consider for a future podcast would be just to kind of do a Eastern Conference preview and see who's emerging. There was obviously teams had successful drafts, and be interesting to see if some of those teams at the bottom are going to emerge, and some of the teams that were at the top are.
There's always some
little
shuffling.
rotation. Yeah. So
let's end with just a few things here. Obviously, one of the big news of the Browns after the win was that they brought Luke Floria back on the practice squad, which was something that, we've been kind of hoping for. Loved watching him in the preseason. We went to a practice, and the guy just makes plays. He just plays hard. He's got a good attitude. He's a hometown guy. It's hard not to root for him. And, maybe he becomes a slot guy that, can be our Wes Welker.
Yeah, exactly.
And
maybe do some special teams things. Return some punts. Give us an extra guy back here on kickoff. It'd be nice to see him break in and make some plays.
Yeah,
I think that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah. So we'll keep an eye on that, but like to see him get back on the active roster or at least the game day roster from time to time. So we'll see. Anything around the league any storylines around the league that caught your attention?
Well, I mean, just a few things. There has been a shift, at least early in the season, what looks like a shift. If you'd ask me to preview wins and losses after 3 weeks and say which teams in the AFC are going to be 3-0, which teams are going to be 0-3 or 1-2 at this time. Kansas City Chiefs 1-2 and struggling. The Indianapolis Colts 3-0, and Daniel Jones looks like wow.
He's last year Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
I mean, he looks like it was the Giants were the problem, not Daniel
it's funny,
Jones.
When we were all, on the outside looking in the preseason and the QB competition with him and Richardson out there, I'm like, man, there's no way that Daniel Jones is going to beat him.
Yeah.
And then they made the announcement, and wow, he's really. They're 3-0. They look good. They're putting points on the board. It's been a fun thing to watch. The Chargers also 3-0.
I watched one of their games and their offense just looks.
Yeah.
It's like a well-oiled machine.
Yeah. So again, that's it's early, but you have Bills looking very good, 3-0. You have the Colts 3-0 leading their division, and the Chargers 3-0 leading their division. And then the AFC North is kind of still up for grab. I think the Steelers are 2-1. The Cincinnati 2-1 as well.
Yeah.
So
there's my spun out son and his fantasy team.
Yeah. It happens, man. Yeah.
Well, and that's what I was going to point to was Daniel Jones. I think that's the story that's the most intriguing with what he's been able to do in Indianapolis. When you think about, Flacco's inability to have success last year, and Anthony Richardson is looking to be a bust. And then Daniel Jones, who everybody thought was a bust, comes in and has them looking like Super Bowl contenders, which again, they have Tyler Warren as a legit tight end. Jonathan Taylor is one of the best running backs. They've got Michael Pittman on the outside. Like, they've got weapons, but he's finding a way to put it all together for them.
Do you think one more thing about around the league is Jackson Dart this early in the season going to come out as QB1?
I mean, Russell Wilson's had one good game and 2 horrible games.
Yeah.
I mean, they got to be having the same conversation we are.
And talk about, if that happens, you have Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston on you. Wow. Yeah.
I think New Orleans might be looking to trade for Jameis Winston again.
Yeah. He may be a homecoming.
Yeah.
Spencer Rattler's not exactly
tearing that up. No, but I will say Spencer Rattler was really, really good for my fantasy defensive team.
Well, there's that,
Because I picked up Seattle.
Yeah.
Hey, look at that segue into fantasy update. I just wanted to point out that my team is going to have the highest scoring week so far this season in our fantasy.
What was your record going into this week?
That's irrelevant. It's all about what have you done for me lately.
Okay.
But no, in all honesty, I did a trade with one with each of my kids. To be honest, it was actually kind of to help them out. But it turns out it might have been a win for me.
Wow.
So
how did that happen?
I gave up Derrick Henry for Omarion Hampton, and Derrick has 12 points, and Omarion had 25. I gave up Sam Laporta for Mark Andrews, and Sam Laporta has 6 points, and Mark Andrews had 17 and a half.
Yeah.
And I gave up Malik Neighbors for Romeo Odunze. Romeo had 15 and Malik had like 4 or 5.
Yeah.
So it's been a good week for me.
I think the moral of that story is that Drew will hoodwink you on fantasy trades. So beware. Buyer beware.
Well, that, I may guise it under the, it's going to benefit you, but
Yeah.
in the end, it'll benefit me.
Yeah, exactly.
But last thing, and then we got to go. But I did want to just revisit, now that we've got at least 3 games of a sample size, the trade with Jacksonville, and our at least initial thoughts on it. I was the most adamant against it. There's no denying that. I wanted Travis Hunter, go hell or high water. That's who I wanted.
Yeah.
I think he's a generational talent. But I'm softening my stance. I don't know where you stand.
Well,
So let me announce. So just to revisit, we got Mason Graham with all the picks that were traded. We got Mason Graham, Quinshon Judkins, Dylan Sampson, and a yet to be drafted first round pick next year. They got Travis Hunter. I don't know if I'm saying his name right. Bashal Tootin, a running back, and Rayon Lane, a safety. So those are the pieces that were traded.
Well, I think it's too early to really put a grade on it, but the overwhelming feeling from Cleveland fans right now, we're on the better end of that deal so far. If we just focus in on the Travis Hunter part of that, he's playing both sides of the ball, no question about it. But I think Jacksonville is struggling to scheme for him. His touches, his looks, his targets are limited.
They've been going down each game just like Dylan Sampson.
Yeah, and he did get burned, and he had 6 tackles this past weekend on defense and a pass defended, I think. So he's getting burned on defense, but was that worth first round next year, second round this year, fourth round this year? Was it worth everything they gave up to get him? At this point, after 3 weeks, it'd be a hard no for me. If we had the stats, we had Travis Hunter and his current stat line in Cleveland, as fans, we would be because we'd be saying Stefanski's misusing him. What is Cleveland doing? Any other team would be getting this guy the ball. Well, he's in Jacksonville and he's not getting the ball. So it's hard for me. I don't know what's going on over there. They're a 2-win football team right now, so it's not like they're doing that horrible.
But their offense is out of sync.
Yeah. So
they're like us. Their offense is struggling, but their defense is playing well.
Yeah. So we'll see if they can kind of turn that around. As far as what we got, Mason Graham is a difference maker.
So as much as a defensive tackle can be.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Quinshon Judkins looks to be the real deal.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we have a small sample size. And Dylan Sampson, when used properly,
is effective.
Mm-hmm. So
got to work on his pass blocking, but
what we do with that pick next year, who knows? But
I think a lot of it depends on what we see out of
2 QBs.
2 QBs. Now, at least the trajectory right now is our pick will be higher than theirs.
Yeah.
So ours would theoretically be the QB. My guess is theirs would then turn into probably a wide receiver or left tackle.
Yeah.
But as things stand right now.
Yeah.
But I still want Travis Hunter. I think he's too dynamic of a player. But when you think about that, we may have lost him, but you're going to pick up probably 4 actual pieces. Not now. Do I trust Andrew Berry to hit on the first round pick next year? I don't know. But he hit on the 3 this year. And I can't deny that.
We go back to the rookie report and the impact that this year's rookies have. And you say, okay, if we're going to be drafting impact players again next year, we can put 2 drafts back to back where we're getting this type of quality.
Mm-hmm. Which we're going to have to, because we still have Deshaun's huge cap hit next year.
Yeah.
So you're going to have a roster full of rookie contracts. So all that to say, I went from being adamantly against it to
Softening.
open to being wrong
Yeah.
once it's all said and done. Because I do, even Dylan Sampson, whose role is decreasing, I like all three of those players. There isn't anything about those players I don't like at this point. And
But,
so,
you know, similarly to Dylan Sampson, you know, he's a scheme problem
yeah,
for a coach.
Yeah.
And Travis Hunter is going to be, you know, how do you get a guy? He's undersized,
hmm
certainly shifty.
yeah,
He's a dynamic player,
right.
but you've got to scheme to get him the ball. He's not going to be that what Megatron type wide receiver.
Yeah, no, he's not going to be, you know, a guy that's going to make a lot of contested catches, although he did in college. He's not a guy that's a great route runner yet. You know, he's not a guy that has done much more than just go get the ball. And so it's going to take some time.
Who was it a couple years ago? Alabama had a guy, a wide receiver, maybe it wasn't Jalen Waddle. A small shifty guy like that, and you know, every time they ran him in motion, you know, when
The one
Ohio
that
State
killed the
played-
Buckeyes?
Yes.
Wasn't that Devontae Smith?
Okay, yeah, and it just like
Yeah.
you knew he was getting the
Yeah.
ball, and
Yeah.
you know, but they schemed him.
Yeah.
You know, there was, and at least I knew he was getting the ball.
You mean coaches can scheme?
That's the theory. Nick Saban can scheme. Alabama's current coach, I don't know. Stefanski, jury's out. You know, or the jury's not out,
Yeah.
depending on who you are.
Yeah.
You know, but anyway, they scheme for him, and it's, you
Mhm.
know, it'd just be interesting to see if Jacksonville does something like that, where it's like on the field and they're moving him around, and you know, I don't know. You remember when Miles was moving, you know, he moved from left to
Mhm.
right, and they moved two blockers from left to right, and ended up having to burn a timeout.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Which he did some of that yesterday too. He was in different spots along the line, so that was good to see.
but Jacksonville,
Yeah.
or Cleveland with Dylan Sampson,
Mhm.
they need to be scheming
Yeah.
their offensive weapons like that to where the defense is like, okay, we've got to have two
Yeah.
guys on this guy, or we've
100%,
got to have a spot
yeah.
on this guy.
100%.
Haven't seen that yet, so
No. Well, we'll see. We'll keep tabs on that trade and come back from time to time and see if our attitudes or opinions of it change. Anything else?
that's it.
Thanks for hanging in there with us.
Go Browns. Go Guards.
Share this, like it, follow our
Smash
YouTube
that
and
subscription button.
that thing. Yeah, he said.
I don't even
Help
know
us
what
get
that
word
is.
out there.
All
You
the
know,
kids are saying to do that, so smash that button.
show Mike that we don't need him.
That's right.
We might
Well,
want
actually,
him.
we want him. We don't need him.
Just kidding. We need you, Mike. Come back soon. All right. Until then, thanks for hanging out with us. This is 3 and Out. Later.